I'm the first to say the last thing you want to do with a debt collection debt is to pay it. Today I want to talk to y'all a little bit about holiday finances, credit, things along those lines. During the holidays, especially we just passed Black Friday, we'll have Cyber Monday coming up. People are very, very tempted to overextend themselves financially. And what happens is they get into the holiday spirit and forget about their regular financial obligations, whether it be their mortgage, credit card, debt, or whatever the case may be. And I want to encourage you to take steps to be very careful about your spending habits. Don't overextend yourself just because there's sales coming up. Don't overextend yourself because Christmas is coming up and you want to get gifts. This is not the time for you to overextend yourself, because a lot of you want to get a fresh start in 2024 next year, but what you're doing in November and December will catch up with you, and you're actually going to start the year off in a great deficit. And so to prevent that, first, become aware of your finances and spending, and don't overextend yourself. Budget, recognize that your bills and obligations come first when it comes to putting money aside, meaning spending on sales and things that are not necessities come next after your regular obligations, such as your food, shelter, gas, transportation. Okay, continue to budget and don't let the holiday overrule that budget. That's very important. A few weeks ago I told you had 70 days to the new year. Well, now you're down to about half that, and many of you want to start the new year 2024 off in a better financial position than you were in 2023, and you can do that. And so I want to talk to you about that. I want to encourage you to continue to try to do that, and most of that starts with wise spending. Don't overspend this holiday season. I know it's easier said than done, but you really have to try. You may think you're going to disappoint someone, but it's not about that. Don't be a people pleaser and sacrifice your well-being financially for someone else. Just don't do it. And I've learned in life, you really can't fully satisfy people. Satisfaction really comes from within. So you trying to do extra financially, hurting yourself to try to make someone else happy is just not the way to go. That's just not how you should live your life. So I encourage you, don't do that. You can show people you care by within your means, by doing what you can. Okay? So keep that in mind. I'm sure you saw a lot of those Target sales signs being slid back by customers showing that there's really no sale. Those prices are regular prices. That was genius, whoever did that and recognized that. Don't spend money you don't have. Don't spend money on things you don't need, and don't overextend yourself trying to do for others in anticipation for Christmas that's coming up in a month. All right? Now, keeping that in mind, also, while in the holiday spirit, don't ignore bills or neglect bills, your mortgage. If you've already neglected your mortgage in the past or neglected your car payment in the past, getting ready for Thanksgiving or spending on Black Friday, then this is a time to go ahead and turn your attention to those things so you can get back in good standing. What typically happens during this holiday season is, first of all, our attention shifts from our obligations to the holidays, friends and family, fun, sales, things, and you fall behind on real life and your financial obligations. For example, you may be behind on your mortgage, and depending on what state you're in, you may be facing foreclosure. Okay? Now, I'm a trial lawyer, foreclosure defense attorney in New York. And in New York, the foreclosure process goes through the court system. So you are sued to be foreclosed upon. That's called judicial foreclosure. Okay, so if you're in a state where you have to be sued to be foreclosed upon, you're going to get a foreclosure notice served to you in the mail. Before that, you're going to get what's called a notice of acceleration letter in the mail. If you've gotten that already and you've put it aside because you want to focus on the holidays, what you need to do is to get that and get that in the hands of a consumer lawyer to advise you of your rights and of your obligations so that you can defend against that. The biggest misconception is that if you're facing foreclosure for not paying your mortgage, you can't defend it unless you can make all the payments. That is not true. That is not true. And I've had clients who haven't paid in years and are finally foreclosed upon. They have rights. You still have the right to defend that case. And to defend that case, you don't have to pay all the arrear payments, all the payments that you have not paid, which are arrears. You don't have to pay all of that to defend the case. Okay, so that's something that you should know, so that you're not thinking you just should ignore it because there's no way to defend it. The worst thing you can do actually is ignore it, because after 20 days or 30 days in some instances, you could lose by default, and that makes it a very difficult process to defend once you defaulted in responding. Okay? As far as car notes, many people again neglect their car loan payment and are at risk for repossession, etc. Well, this is a good time to get with a consumer lawyer or get with your lender and work out an arrangement to get back in good standing. Sometimes, due to hardship or some other instances or whatever the case may be, these lenders or loan servicers will allow you the opportunity to get caught up on those payments without having to pay all the money that you've missed. You could be months behind. You may be able to make some arrangements. Okay? That's another opportunity for you to get off to a fresh start in 2024 and not run the risk of getting your car repossessed and taken from you during the holidays or before the new year or in the new year. Okay? So, again, you can contact your lender, let them know that you want to make arrangements to bring it current. If you're in a position to pay what's behind, great. If not, you want to ask what arrangements can be made to pay that amount over time. So they may ask you to start paying the future payments and add a certain amount to the future payments so that you can get caught up. All right? For those of you that are renting, the same thing. If you're behind because you've overextended yourself over the holidays or about to, well, first of all, if you're about to, try not to, but if you've already done it, talk to your landlord. The last thing we want to hear about is people getting evicted during the holidays or in the upcoming years. Talk to your landlord, try to work something out. Likewise, if you've been sued for eviction, try to work something out or get with a lawyer who can help you negotiate and deal with those issues. Finally, when it comes to credit and debt, a lot of you want to get off to into the new year with a fresh start, meaning you want to start the new year off debt-free or work toward becoming debt-free. Well, understand that's very possible. And I want to tell you there's some myths out there on how you can do that. There's some misinformation out there on how to do that. I'll give you some insight and I'll continue to provide you with some tips. But if you're dealing with debt that is now turned over to a debt collector or a debt collection agency, you're going to get a letter in the mail most likely, or you're going to see a collection pop up on your credit report. I'm the first to say the last thing you want to do with a debt collection debt is to pay it. And the reason is, once it shows up on your credit report, paying it does not fully address the negative impact it's having on your credit. Okay, paying it will just bring it to a zero balance, but you'll still have that collection activity on your credit report that's going to harm you. When it comes to debt collections, over a year ago, there's a new Regulation F law that requires that the debt collector contact you in writing before putting a collection on your credit report. Some debt collectors violate that and these debts pop up on your credit, but whatever the case may be, if you do in fact get a letter before it pops up on your credit, you have a 30-day window to dispute and request verification or validation of that debt collection. And so at that time, that's when you want to send a verification letter, and that letter, which is in my book, 4 Steps to Better Credit, is called a 1692 GB letter, and that is a section of the FDCPA that governs your rights as to how you can dispute a debt. There's a very specific way you need to do this. So get a copy of that letter, send that to the debt collector using the information that's provided on the letter that you got from them. If you didn't get a letter from them, I still recommend that you send a 1692 GB letter to that debt collector using the debt collector's information that you see on your credit report. This letter is going to trigger a few legal things, but the purpose of that letter is to gather information concerning the debt so that you can make an informed decision on who to pay it to and how to pay it. And it also creates a hard stop. The debt collector has to stop their collection activity until they provide you with this information. So many times the letter results in the debt collector deleting the item or stopping their collection activity on the item and sending it back to the original creditor, and that is the desired result. And most of the time that's what's going to happen, which is good. Okay. Next, with all other things on the credit report, you're going to be dealing with late payments and other things that are not necessarily negative, such as, for example, if you run your credit card all the way up, then your goal should be to not be late on any payment and to make the minimum payment. Okay, so your accounts in good standing, your goal right now should be to keep them there. And if you've overextended yourself with your credit card debt where you can't pay the full balance each month, which is what's recommended for optimal credit score ratings, your goal should be to be sure that on all your credit card and other debt obligations is to make the minimum payment, okay, so that you're in good standing. And once you recuperate financially, to make a much larger payment. Okay, the goal is not to make the minimum payment, the goal is to really pay revolving credit off and treat it like cash. But if you're not in a position to do that, the goal is to keep that account in good standing. Now, if you've overextended yourself and your balance is near or at the credit limit, that's going to really hurt your credit score. But understand that is a temporary negative standing. Once you're in a better financial position and can pay that credit card debt down to zero, your credit score will reflect an increase because your utilization has decreased. All right. And so for now, those are some things that you should look out for. Not paying the collections, disputing them properly. The reason you don't pay debt collectors is because that doesn't fix the credit report. If you desire to pay a debt collection debt that's truly owed, then you can deal with the original creditor on your own terms in doing that. The main point is to be able to get rid of that collection off the credit report, and that's going to help your credit tremendously. And if you want to deal with that original debt, then you can deal with it. Now, there's an exception to that. If a debt collector is what's called a debt buyer, that means they actually bought that debt from the original creditor, then a lot of times with that 1692 GB letter, because of the level of sophistication you seem to have about challenging that debt, sometimes they'll stop collecting it and say that they won't try to collect it again. Then you don't have to worry about paying the original creditor. So some examples of that would be Midland Funding, that's a debt buyer. Portfolio Recovery Associates, that's a debt buyer, and there are many others. But if you get information back from these debt collectors saying that they now own the debt, and they indicate that they are going to cease and desist or stop collecting on that debt, then you're done. You don't have to worry about that debt at all. But other debts that are not owned by that debt collector, if you desire to resolve those debts, you can do so with the original creditor. So those are some tips for credit and financial obligations that you can study, replay this, and implement, so that as you approach 2024, you'll be in the best financial position, credit position that you want to be, based on good information. All right, continue to tune in, comment, subscribe, follow. Talk to you soon.